All right, let's get this started. Welcome to another HVAC webinar. This time we are joined by Kyle Chan with Summit Insurance. He's going to be taking us through a fairly interesting topic. I don't think we broached too much on the HRA webinars. It is professional liability for the HVAC industry. So updates, what to know in 2023. You may think you've got this covered, but there's always it's a moving target. So Kyle Chan with Summit Insurance has graciously, I think is the word, offered to join us and provide an update. Hi, Kyle.
Hey Matthew, thanks for having me.
Our pleasure.
Definitely been looking forward to this and kind of sharing some insights from the team.
Excellent.
But yeah, I mean, what we could do is I do have a bit of an agenda kind of set up.
Mhm.
I know we've got the Q&A box. So if anyone does have any questions kind of on the spot or anything pressing, definitely,
Right.
put your hand up or ask, or we can throw it in there and answer, that question at that time. But we'll also open it up just at the end
Mhm.
to answer any questions that does come up. I want to keep this really high level, really simple, make it easy and digestible. I know oftentimes insurance comes with a lot of lingo and certain terminology that kind of even flies over my head sometimes. So I just want to make this
Okay.
nice and simple. And again, we can answer any questions that do come up as well. So
Perfect. Well, you said it better than I could, so I'm going to turn off my camera and hand the show to you. Thanks so much.
awesome. Thanks, Matthew. Yeah, so I'm a commercial account executive at Summit Insurance. We've actually been partnered with the HRA for maybe about a year and a half now. So it's been really fun, reaching out to the membership, having conversations just about kind of what insurance they have in place, maybe seeing if they'd like a little bit of help on the renewals. But what we have found is, the majority of the membership is more so on the contracting side. So a lot of the installation side. So that's any sort of, renovations, new builds, retrofits, and then eventually into kind of more of that, service, repair, and maintenance side. But there's definitely a portion of the membership that is on the HVAC design side. So that might be residential design, it could be commercial or industrial design. And this presentation might be more tailored towards those members. But there's definitely some key takeaways that we can share that might benefit anyone else on here that isn't a designer at this point. Oh, all right, just a quick agenda. Again, we'll make this nice and simple and quick. Um, the first thing we'll touch on is, what is professional liability? I think professional liability also, is referred to as errors and omissions. It's not a coverage that, not everyone is aware of. I think the commercial general liability side is the one that most people have a really good understanding of because that is a core pillar of any, commercial insurance policy, whereas the professional liability side is more tailored towards the professional services, anyone who offers advice and counsel. So we can dig into that. We can dig into what it might cost and maybe some potential claim scenarios. I do have a claim scenario that I've been a part of that I can share that kind of really breaks down exactly how a professional liability policy would respond to a loss. The second slide we'll dig into kind of the rating we're seeing in the industry right now. I'm sure anyone who's in here, as a business owner, you've seen rates just kind of go up the last handful of years in pretty much every sector. But there are definitely ways of mitigating those risks, and there's three key things that the team and I have found to really help that. And as much as this is, about professional liability, those are key things that any business owner can take away and implement into their own renewal strategy to kind of, again, just find the rates to find, something that fits what you're looking for. And then we can just dig into the last slide, which will just be about the BCIN renewal process. So in Ontario, to be a licensed designer, you need to be a member of the BCIN. And there are different, certain bills, like in Ontario, there's Bill 124 that does outline certain insurance requirements. So we can just dig into that. And then, of course, at the end, if we have any questions, we'll answer those. All right. So what is professional liability? Professional liability, simply put, is it's coverage in the event that somebody wants to pursue a claim against us for any sort of professional negligence or error or omission in our advice and counsel and our professional services. So typically, types of businesses that you would see carry this type of insurance would be anyone, that is providing any sort of like consulting work, any sort of professional service like an accountant, bookkeeping, even in like financial services will need it. Um, Heck, even Summit has a professional liability policy that will respond in the event that, let's say, one of our prospects or our clients comes after us, alleging professional negligence or any sort of error and omission in our actual work. Um, what does it cost? It's a common question that the team and I get every day, and really, I can't give you an answer right away. There's a lot of factors that go into it, and really, it would take us just to get a better understanding of what your business currently does operationally. And once we dig into more of those details, we'd be able to get a much better understanding of what pricing might look like. I would say there's probably about four factors that are the main factors in ironing out exactly what premium looks like. The first being what limit we're after. If we're after a 250,000 in coverage, or maybe we're after 1 million or five, obviously as that coverage increases, so will our premiums. So that's, I'd say, the major factor. The second, probably biggest factor is just revenue. Are you an independent contractor that's looking at maybe 100,000 revenue for the year, or are you a firm that has maybe 10 designers and you're doing 1 million plus? So those scopes are definitely a little bit different. As revenue does increase, we do see that the likelihood of a claim will increase with it, which makes sense, right? Like if you're doing 100,000 in revenue, you have a certain amount of clients to get that generate that revenue. To get up to that 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, whatever that looks like, we do have to have, more clients and do a bit more work to attain that revenue level. So as we, do more work, I guess simply put, the likelihood of a claim does generally go up. I think one thing that we don't, or we kind of overlook, is exactly the actual breakdown of what you do, because that really does play a factor in pricing as well. Are you somebody that just does residential design, or are you somebody that does also a bit of commercial and some industrial? So those are the kind of the operational details that do matter. You know, if you're ever going through a renewal process and somebody asks you like what exactly you're doing, and the more questions they ask, generally the more detail they're able to provide to the insurance companies to then make sure that they are getting that accurate pricing and the accurate coverages for your specific business needs. And then I would say the fourth thing that matters is just, what's your claims history look like? Are you somebody that has never had a claim, or are you somebody that has, multiple claims? And I think what is often, maybe misunderstood is, having a claim isn't that bad. If you're a business that's been around for 10, 15, 20 years and you have a claim, that's normal. I think what the insurance companies don't want to see is the company that has multiple claims and haven't really put in any sort of like stop loss procedures or implemented any safety precautions. That's when you start to see maybe you're not going to find the coverages that you want, or maybe the premiums start to go up a little bit. I know nobody here wants to have claims, and ultimately that's a part of running a business, and that's what the policy is there to protect. And so, it happens, claims do happen, and it's not the end of the world. It's more so what the insurance companies don't want to see is if you have those same recurring claims, and we just haven't put anything in place to kind of stop those. And then a claims example that I think is really, really relevant, that I was a part of not too long ago. We had a contractor install in a residential home a full HVAC system. There was a company that obviously did design work for it, and then we had the client that came in and installed it. Upon installation, once everything was kind of up and running, there was an issue, and the client's basement completely flooded. Huge claim, big water damage claim. And of course, the homeowner goes after the contracting company that did the installation. they did the installation that caused this damage to my home. I'm going to pursue a claim against you. And which is 100% the process and makes a ton of sense to everyone. Once they got the adjuster in there, the adjuster actually determined that, actually the contractor installed it to spec, to design. The problem was that the design from the HVAC designer was actually wrong. It didn't fit the measurements, which caused, the loss. And what then happened is the contractor then pursued a professional liability claim against the HVAC designer because it was deemed that their design was where there was an error in it. So that's what the errors and omissions coverage does provide. If the HVAC designer only had commercial general liability, they would have to pay that out of pocket because that coverage just the commercial general liability doesn't cover the professional liability aspect. You need to have that added onto your policy. And so, hopefully, knock on wood, we don't ever have to deal with anything like that again. But that's a typical situation where a HVAC designer's professional liability policy does, respond to a loss. And unfortunately, with those type of losses, they're generally really higher or high in payout value. There isn't a very high frequency of HVAC designer claims. Like it's a fairly low frequency of loss, but typically the losses are quite high, especially if we are providing, design work for larger commercial spaces, maybe multi-residential units and such. So that's again, that's typically what we'll see from a HVAC design claim scenario standpoint. Does anyone have any questions? I know I kind of ripped through that pretty quickly. Does anything kind of stand out that maybe they want maybe a little bit more information or maybe a bit more color on?
Nothing as of yet, but just a reminder, this is interactive. So if you'd want to join in and ask Kyle anything, type it in our webinar chat or our question and answer. And if that happens, I will pop back on and rudely interrupt you so we can get to it.
Amazing. Let's do it. Yeah, I've got one screen popped up. So if there's stuff coming up through the Q&A, I might not see it. All right. Mitigating year-over-year rate increases. This is one a bit that, again, I think this is relevant to anybody on this webinar. You don't have to be in the HVAC design space. If you're a business owner that carries commercial insurance, these are three, again, tips that you can take away and add into your own renewal process. The first being, and I think the most important thing, is when do you start the renewal process? We have a lot of people that will come up to us and common frustrations are, I'm seeing these year-over-year rate increases. I'm, only given one option at renewal. I don't really know what's out there. Can you help me? And the first thing we'll always ask them is, when you start the process? Typically answers come back, I start a couple weeks out, or I start when my broker reaches out to me. And oftentimes that's just not enough time. What I will say is, depending on how complex your business is, it might take 2, 3, 4 weeks for an underwriter to actually provide a quote for you. So if you are wanting to reach out to other markets just to kind of see what else is out there, do a bit of due diligence yourself. Really, you need to start that process 2 months in advance. We can't wait till the end because that's generally what happens. You don't start your renewal process till a couple weeks out. The broker they are working with might only have time to work, through the renewal with the insurance company you're currently with, and maybe they don't have enough time to reach out to the other markets to just, again, do due diligence, make sure you price check, make sure what you're offering to the client is fair and market price. So that's one thing that at Summit, we start our process 90 days in advance. I know we reach out to people, they're like, we just talked about the insurance, we got 3 months, but really we understand the value of just starting the process early. We never want to be stuck kind of with our pants down, hey, this is our only renewal option. We have to renew in 5 days. It's a take it or leave it thing. Business owners just want some options. And really the best way of making sure you have enough time to reach out and secure those options is just by starting early. That's the first one. And really the main key takeaway that I think if any business owner implements into their renewal strategy, you'll start to really see results, and you'll actually start to then, have options, which unfortunately sometimes just isn't the case if we don't start the renewal process sooner than later. The second thing that is definitely important is, does your broker actually understand your business? You know, I know insurance brokering can sometimes be this huge sales game where somebody can talk you into believing that they understand your business. Really, having a broker truly understand your business is extremely important. We got a question?
We have a question.
All right.
Statement. So, Veronica from chat asks, we started our renewal 2 months in advance, and the broker couldn't or wouldn't give us a pricing until just before the renewal date. So we were pretty much stuck with the rate, which was double from last year. So not so much a question, but maybe a comment. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So starting 2 months in advance, awesome. Like that's really a really good time to start. I mean, I can't really speak for your broker as far as why they couldn't get options. Again, it might actually tie into my second point here, where, like I said, it would take 2 to 3, sometimes 4 weeks to secure options, if it's more of a complex business. So if you did start the process 2 months in advance and the broker actually did reach out to those markets when you had that conversation, then there's no reason they couldn't have turned around multiple options for you. Um, and it's tough because I don't know quite, what is going on. Certain brokerages have access to certain different insurance companies. Maybe they actually weren't able to find something, which is it's tough. You're doing the right things. Like starting early is so important. Like you're essentially making sure that the broker that you're using has enough time to reach out to the markets, secure other options while working on your renewal option with your current insurance company. And we hear that frustration sadly every day. Hey, I only have one option at renewal and it just doubled. And really, you don't have much of a choice at that point. You can try and get an extension and try and buy some time, but yeah, sadly, that's actually something that we deal with all the time, where clients will come up to us or prospects will come up to us and say that exact same thing. And that's why, like I said, starting early is huge. But it's not a matter of you starting early. It's probably more so making sure that the broker that you're using starts early. Um, and then that does kind of play into maybe the second point here. Um, if you typically find that you're getting one set of renewal terms and the broker that you're using is saying, hey, we actually don't have any other options, we've reached out to XYZ insurance company, ABC 123, and we've just been declined across the board, um, typically that's a sign that your broker doesn't quite understand your business, because really what your broker's job is to do is to reach out to the insurance companies with your risk, right? The submission is a piece of paper, but ultimately it's our job to make sure that the insurance companies understand exactly what's going on. Because if a broker doesn't, supply the underwriters with all the adequate information they need to make a decision to quote or not, then they're not going to quote. Insurance companies and underwriters, they're inundated with submissions. I was an underwriter prior to this, and so I can say this quite confidently that I had more submissions come across my desk than I can actually quote. And so really, how did I prioritize that? I went through the submissions that had all the information I needed and I prioritized that. And so I think the key takeaway is just making sure that your broker understands your business so they can paint the picture to the underwriters and provide them all that information off the bat and answer any questions that they may have to then work towards getting a quote. Because typically, if I got a submission and then it's just like, not really complete, there's a lot of information that's missing, I'll decline it when I was an underwriter. And so I think if you're constantly getting declined, it might just be that your broker's not really painting that picture like I had mentioned. Or it could be the third thing, who is actually underwriting your risk. They could be going to insurance companies that don't really like what you do. Ultimately, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of insurance companies out there, and each one, because it's so competitive, each one will try to specialize or be really competitive in a certain space. So they're are insurance companies that are really good at commercial auto. There's insurance companies that are really good at home insurance. And there's some that are really good at hospitality or construction and so on and so forth. So if your broker is reaching out, to like a home and auto specialist for a commercial insurance policy, you're going to get declined. They don't do it. And so it could be that the broker is just not really reaching out to the appropriate insurance companies that actually like to insure what you do. So it could be many things. I don't quite know. I can't really just throw things out there. But again, those are the three things here that I think are really important. Really wanting to make sure that you're working with a broker that gets you. If you have a broker, let's say you run a restaurant, he or she talks you up, you feel good, you like this broker, you want them to represent you, but you find out that they only work in construction. Well, it's going to be pretty hard for that person to find and know the appropriate insurance companies to reach out and understand the uniquenesses and the nuances of your business to properly then paint the picture for them for exactly what they're trying to insure. Does that kind of make sense? Just want to open it up to the floor here. I know I threw a bunch out there, but I do think this is really important because we have seen, like I said, every industry the last handful of years has seen these year-over-year rate increases. And unfortunately, a lot of people just assume and accept that it's just, the market, this is natural, this is normal. Sure, it is but if you're seeing these huge rates, like doubling rate, that's an issue. Like even a 10, 15% rate increase is a lot. But these are definitely three things that you can implement right away into your renewal strategy this year, just to make sure that you're giving yourself the best chance of getting terms that you like. Any questions? Looks like we're okay.
Good for now.
Awesome. And then the last slide here, and this is going to be very HVAC design specific. So if you're not really in the HVAC design space, this may not be as relevant to you. But as I mentioned, in Ontario, because the majority of the HRA members are actually in Ontario, and the majority of the actual HVAC designers that we've chatted with that are HRA members are in Ontario. So this is pretty relevant for you guys and girls. As part of the actual licensing process, in order to provide those HVAC design services, you have to be BCIN licensed. And it's just a licensing board and body that keeps track just of licensing, exactly that. Like you have to renew your BCIN license similarly like you'd have to renew your commercial insurance. I know it's something that everyone looks forward to, I'm sure. But part of the BCIN renewal process is also Bill 124 compliance. So it's actually a bill in Ontario that stipulates exactly the levels of coverage that an HVAC designer needs to carry. And it's largely derived off of your revenue level. So depending on what revenue level you're at, whether it's below 100,000 or above 100,000, it actually dictates what level of coverage you need to carry. If you're under the 100,000 threshold, then $1 million professional liability is sufficient. But if you're above that 100 level, then you do have to look at a 2 million aggregate. And part of what we've done at Summit is we've actually vetted out quite a few different insurance companies and underwriters specifically. Because what we've done is, unfortunately, we found that a lot of insurance underwriters don't really understand HVAC design that well. Typically they hear HVAC design and they'll instinctively think, oh, this is a architect or an engineer, when really it's quite different. A lot of the people that we work with, they're providing these HVAC design services essentially just to get a building permit. And so the scope of work is quite a bit different. And this does then again tie into like who is underwriting your risk. So what we've done is we've vetted out quite a few different insurance companies and quite a few underwriters specifically. And we've found is there's certain ones at certain insurance companies that get it. And we've put together a program with those underwriters specifically, and we work with those underwriters directly because again, they get it. And it's important because that Bill 124 compliance, unfortunately, not everyone understands exactly what needs to be in place. So what's really nice is whenever we do reach out to our underwriters, we give them all the necessary information and we say, hey, this needs to be Bill 124 compliance. And they actually add on a Bill 124 endorsement to the policy, which clearly outlines that, hey, this policy that's been purchased fits the Bill 124 requirements, and it'll actually help the entire BCIN renewal process. Because instead of, currently the process is you have to get the policy in place, you have to renew your license, and then you have to send in some additional paperwork. Whereas with our policies, we actually have that endorsement added on. So the process then just looks like you purchase the policy and we send it directly to the ministry and we get approved instantly. So definitely it's a little bit less work for everyone. We're really fortunate that we've been able to put a bit of a program in place, and they've been really helpful in putting together, that endorsement for us. Just again, expedite the process. There's only so much bandwidth to go around most days and most weeks that it's just one less thing that anybody has to worry about at the end of the day. Just a quick slide here. We are a brokerage, so we do have access to, right now, it's 50 plus, I think it's maybe up to 60 different insurance companies right now. And so we have access to a lot of really large companies like Travelers, Aviva, Wawanesa, Intact. We also have specialty markets that help us with professional liability, let's say. So definitely we're fortunate. We have a lot of different markets at our disposal. And again, part of our job is understanding your business and then reaching out to the appropriate one that, likes to insure our business. And there's a bit of just my contact information. Again, if anyone has any specific questions, we could always, answer them now, or if you want to shoot me an email, definitely more than happy to set aside some time. We could even just jump on a quick phone call if you have any questions or anything like that. But again, yeah, opening up the floor. Hopefully I didn't bore everyone. I know it's not, insurance isn't super sexy. And so I get it, but I did try to just make it nice and simple. I think that's really my approach. I don't need to throw around all these jargon and lingo, just try and make it easy for everyone.
I think you were successful, Kyle. That was a great presentation. Thank you.
Awesome.
Down to earth, in a language that most normal people can understand. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome.
So as Kyle said, now is a chance you can send us your questions. In the meantime, I'll just run over just a few housekeeping things. Um, this is an ongoing series, the HRA webinars, and if you'd like to put on one covering a topic of interest to your company or a thought leadership or a new technology or something that would interest HRAI members, please reach out to HRAI through our website, and we can get that settled. That's what we did with Kyle and Summit Insurance, and they've been on here a couple times, and I hope we'll have them again. Otherwise, this will be posted to YouTube, likely early next week. So if you'd like to share, please do. And I can see that everyone knows everything they need to know about liability insurance. No one has any questions at all. They're all experts. So, but if you do have any follow-up, Kyle's got his information on there, and he sounds like he'll be happy to. Oh, wait. One's coming in the 11th hour. From David, is PEO E&O insurance the same as BCIN E&O insurance?
Yes. So professional liability is also called errors and omissions insurance. Can you say that first part again?
Sure. Is PEO space E&O insurance the same as BCIN E&O insurance? If you'd like, I can put that in chat in case I'm not pronouncing it right. Or
Yeah, David, do you mind sharing a little bit more about the PEO aspect? Not as familiar. I work a lot with the Ontario teams, which is BCIN specific, but I could definitely look it up if that's something you want to dig into. I just want to know what PEO is. Maybe it's an acronym I'm considering something else or something along those lines.
We'll give that a second maybe for David to respond. Thanks, David. If you don't mind, just typing up PEO so we know what you can specify. This is where we need Jeopardy music.
Nah,
There'll
nah,
be
nah, nah, nah,
awkward
nah.
silence. Professional Engineering Ontario, PEO.
Okay. I mean,
I put it in here.
I would the professional liability is the exact same, whether you're a designer or engineer or architect. That professional liability covers the exact same types of losses. Again, it's any sort of error and omission in your design or consulting or opinion. Um, so as far as the BCIN, I know it's a step. I don't want to say a step below, but it's there's less educational and exam requirements to get your BCIN license. Whereas if you're on more of the actual architectural engineering side, I know there's a little bit more required for that license. But as far as the actual professional liability insurance is required, it's the same. Um, I will say architects and engineers pricing is generally a little bit higher than any sort of HVAC BCIN work. Just again, because the scope is quite a bit different. Oftentimes, we might even see HVAC designers have their work signed off by a certain architect or engineer. So there's a little bit more of a standard, but also like a duty if you are an architect or an engineer. Again, because that does come with a lot more education, a lot more training, and I believe an extra examination or two. But as far as, yeah, like I said, as far as the actual professional liability, it would respond exact same way in the exact same claim scenario. Hopefully
Thank you.
that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, David, for adding that clarification. Okay, let's call it here. People can say the webinar went on till 1 to have an extra long lunch if they like to, but in the meantime, reach out to Kyle. Very knowledgeable, and thank you so much for sharing that knowledge with our audience today.
No, I'm awesome. I'm happy. I'm happy for the invitation. When Josh kind of put this across my desk, I was like, yeah, let's do this. It should be
Let's
fun.
do it.
So,
Awesome.
also, yeah, and I'll take an extra long lunch too. So no complaints from me.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and hope to have you again.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Cheers. Bye bye.